Alright, so today we are going to talk about that time the War of the Worlds almost kicked off in Kentucky, the Hopkinsville Goblin incident. On August 21st, 1955, at around 11 p.m., 5 adults and 7 children popped into the Hopkinsville Police Department. Now, all these individuals showed sign of distress. Some were talking about this UFO that landed on the farm property. Others were talking about a shootout with these goblin-like alien creatures that had came out of the spaceship, and the police just were trying to figure out what had happened. Apparently, around supper time, the Sutton family, which was comprised of Lucky Sutton, J.C. Sutton, Elmer Sutton, their wives, their children, and their mother, Glennie Langford. You don't really hear of very many Glennies anymore. Along with 2 friends, O.P. Baker and Billy Ray Taylor, were getting ready to sit down for a nice family dinner. Now, Billy Ray would step outside to collect water from a nearby well, and he saw something streak across the sky that he believed was a flying saucer that landed, or some reports say crashed, in a wooded area near the farm. Billy Ray came back in and told everyone what he had seen, and then him and Lucky Sutton would go to investigate what they saw. And eventually out of the woods stepped a 3 to 4 foot tall creature that looked like a skeleton covered in aluminum foil. It had an oversized head with very large bulgy eyes that were spread apart from each other, webbed hands with 6-inch long clawed fingers, and very distinct pointed ears on each side of its head. Billy Ray and Lucky, startled by this creature, would run back inside in an attempt to warn the others, and that's when multiple of these creatures started swarming the house. They were running around the house, sometimes they were jumping over the house, they were hovering above the ground, and this allowed them, one, not just to move, but also to get up high enough so that they could peek inside the windows at the terrified Suttons within. Billy Ray would peek his head out one of the doors to get a better look at just how many of these creatures there were, when one grabbed him by the hair. He was able to shake this creature loose, and believing they were under attack, they did the most logical thing a Kentuckian can think of in this situation. They grabbed their guns. More particularly, 2 of the Suttons grabbed guns and started shooting at the creatures. The reports are pretty murky. One of them had either a .22 caliber pistol or rifle, and the other one had a shotgun. Reports differ whether it was a 20 gauge or a 12 gauge, which, yes, it matters, but I'm not here to explain all the reasons why. What we do know is reports say that when they hit the creatures, either the bullets bounced off, or if they did hit them, they had very little to no effect on them besides making a sound that sounded like a tin can being hit with a bullet. And despite being shot at, these creatures continued to swarm the house, occasionally popping their heads up to look in windows or doors, while the women and children within the house hid for cover. This shootout would last for several hours, and the family estimated that up to 15 creatures took part in the attack on the Sutton farm. Around 11 p.m., things had calmed down enough that the Sutton family went to the nearby Hopkinsville Police Department to make a full report of what had happened. And I would just like to make a quick note. In one of the newspaper articles I found about this event, the police officer that was interviewed was like, yeah, these aren't people who usually just walk into police stations. They're typically, like, people like this are typically the people who take care of matters like this themselves. So when they came to us, we knew there was a problem. Local police called for backup, and backup came in the form of state police troopers and military police officers from nearby Fort Campbell. They came to check on the farm, and nothing was really out of place besides some busted out windows and a bunch of bullet casings on the floor of the house. But besides that, nothing was really out of the ordinary. They never found a flying saucer. They never found any of the little men. There were no tracks, no blood, and no scratch marks. The police left and the family just kind of went back home. It was reported around 3 in the morning. Glennie thought she saw one of these creatures peeking in her bedroom window. So one of the sons shot at it and it just like disappeared into the night. And that was it. Like, I imagine it like full Little House on the Prairie style. It's like, good night, John Boy. Good night, Papa. Good night, floating gremlin demon monster hovering outside my bedroom window. And one of the sons walked in and was just like, boom. All right, good night, Mama. Now, in the days after this event and into the modern day, it has been written off by skeptics and experts alike as a case of mass hysteria or a case of wildlife misidentification, with many pointing to the fact that this could have all been just one super aggressive great horned owl. Seriously, like if I had a quarter for every cryptid in Appalachia that's just been blamed on a great horned or barn owl, I would have 3 quarters, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that this makes the 3rd time it has happened. Mothman, oftentimes written off as just an owl. The Flatwoods Monster, oftentimes written off as a giant barn owl, and now the Hopkinsville Goblins, written off as a great horned owl. It's weird that it keeps happening, and why is it always blamed on a creature that is associated with hidden knowledge, secrets, and magic dating all the way back to the times of the Babylonian Empire? That's weird. Right? And this is a case that has just become more and more popular over time. This was 1955, just 3 years after the sighting of the Flatwoods Monster. Independent UFO magazines had exploded in popularity, and people were waiting for the next big extraterrestrial encounter to write and talk about after the Flatwoods Monster, and the Hopkinsville Goblins scratched an itch that a lot of people were waiting for, and it just exploded in popularity. There are some weird things about the case, like for example, like I said before, the police were kind of startled that people would come in to the police station, especially people like the Suttons, if there wasn't some immediate and present danger. Likewise, when interviewed, pretty much everyone in the house gave the exact same description of the creatures and of the attacks. So because of that and how quickly it was written off, there's a lot of conspiracy and speculation around this case even to this day. Now, the town of Hopkinsville does have a festival dedicated to the goblins, very much like Point Pleasant has a festival dedicated to Mothman. And as we've talked about many times before, the Japanese love Appalachian cryptids so much that there's even a Pokemon based off of the goblins. I'll put a picture of it. So that's going to wrap up this story. What are your thoughts on the Hopkinsville Goblins? What other cases from Appalachia would you like me to talk about in the future? Let me know down in the comments. And until next time, don't forget to stay wild, stay wonderful, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Actually, I need to go write a petition to try and get either a Flatwoods Monster or a Mothman Pokemon made, because I don't know why there's neither one of those made yet.